I remember at school there was this kid, Aiden he was called. Aiden Walker, I think it was. We were 11, going on 12. It was IT class. Computers were still kind of new. The internet was still, like, exciting. I remember one lesson he printed out the lyrics to Guns N' Roses to try and impress people, because Guns N' Roses, all their songs are about sex and drugs, and there's loads of swearing. Like, there's one that opens with, your daddy watches porno now that your mommy's not around. She used to love her heroin, but now she's in the ground. We were 11, we were impressed by stuff like that. He printed out the lyrics from a website, and he went around showing people them to impress them. Like, oh, look what I've printed off Guns N' Roses songs. And the best thing was, at the top, in like the address bar, the Earl, on the printout, it said, Sheryl Crow, sweet child o' mine. That won't make the final cut. The stories like that never do. Right. This is Avengers versus Invaders, issue 5. Can't go wrong with a good old X versus Y series. This is a Marvel comic starring exclusively Marvel characters and Marvel properties. That is co-published by Dynamite, because Alec Rose's ego is that enormous. To a casual onlooker, Alec Rose would seem to have nothing to do with this comic, because this is the variant cover by Mike Diddy-Dardo Jerk. Nout like this happens in the issue. Miss Marbles doesn't fight Sayman, but the main cover for this was by Alec Rose, and that is why it was co-published by Dynamite Entertainment. Alec Rose alone. Ludicrous, isn't it? There's a few Marvel titles like this where Alec Rose did some sketches, and therefore they are co-published with Dynamite. When it comes to this comic, Alec Rose actually does very little. It is written by Freddy Krueger, who often writes stories around Alec Rose's art pieces. And then the actual artwork is by someone else. Someone who doesn't even really evoke Alec Rose's style. So we have Avengers and we have Invaders, and they are doing a versus. There's a few problems, but I will quickly summarise the plot so far. The 5 main invaders from World War II, Captain America, Seaman, the original Human on Fire, Bucky Man and Tonto, they have been brought forward in time somehow. That's about it. We are 5 issues in, and that is the plot. First problem, we have 5 Invaders and about 20 Avengers. The other problem is that the Avengers and Invaders crossing over seems like a good idea on paper. You think it can be like the Justice League stories, where they would have annual team-ups with the Justice Society of Superheroes. It doesn't work like that, because all 5 of the Invaders have been alive at points in the modern day. There's nothing really exciting here. One of the more intriguing ideas in this is related to that. We are having Buckyman, the Buckyman from the past, meet his present day counterpart, who is currently Captain America, and who had spent decades brainwashed as a Soviet assassin. This was still towards the start of Buckyman's return, and it is almost straight after he became the new Captain America. And so exploring stuff like this feels relevant and fresh. While the two teams fight, we start to see one of the first ongoing side plots, which involves the SHIELD life model decoys. And that is one of the bits I remember liking in this. Another gripe I would lay at the feet of this series is that we have all these Avengers, but very few that I would consider actual Avengers characters. We are in the Benson days of Avengers. We have all of Benson's favourite pet characters and Wolfman, and very few actual Avengers characters. In this story, to be blunt about it, here are the Avengers featured that I would consider legitimate Avengers characters. Iron Man, Wasps, Wonder Man, Miss Marbles, Karen Daggers before they ruined her by making her smelly Brie Larsons, and Scarlett Johansson. I will give a pass to Spider-Man. And Hawkeye deserves a mention, even if he is stuck in his awful murdering ninja setup from Benson. It is still Hawkeye. It's still meant to be Hawkeye. I would even allow for Buckyman, Captain America, because Captain America is at least an iconic Avenger. Do you realise, though, that what I listed isn't even close to half the amount of Avengers in here? Doctor Strange, who is also an Avenger, he is going to use magic to try and return these Invaders to the past before the time stream gets all messy from their absence. We also learn that the Cosmic Cube is involved. That is what has brought them forward in time. Another subplot that gets much play in this 12-issue series is Iron Man facing the Captain America from the past. Long story short, in the present day of this story, Captain America, Steve Rogers, is dead. He died after the mega event crossover, Civil Wars. And his death was partly Iron Man's fault. Iron Man and Captain America had their big falling out, and a mega event crossover fight was had. And in the end, Captain America surrendered, and he was going to be put on trial for his rebellious crimes, going against the government's demands to register superheroes. He was assassinated on his way to court by Bane. And Iron Man didn't pull the trigger, obviously, but he does feel a great deal of guilt for it. And he really should, because he was written deplorably throughout it all. We have a few obvious ideas here. Iron Man handling his grief through this past version of Captain America. He is trying to get this version of Captain America to agree with him and forgive him for something that will happen. Loads of quite obvious stuff. And it all gets a lot of page time. And I didn't mind it at the time because I was invested in all of that Civil Wars and Death of Captain America junk. But on reread, it feels like a waste. Because present day Captain America will be back. He'll be fine. He'll be right as rain within a few months of this series ending. And when this here is one of the stronger arguments for bringing these characters forward in time, it really doesn't justify it. We have a scene, a downtime scene, and it's actually pretty decent. And it involves Wolfman even. Wolfman discusses with Tonto's origin as a mutie and what being a mutie has come to mean. These 2 pages are the only use for Wolfman in this story. He could as easily have been replaced with Smurf, and it would have been the exact same scene, except with an actual Avengers character involved. We find out that the 5 Invaders weren't alone, and that a soldier from World War II was also brought forward in time, the one we saw at the start. He will be a big plot character. And we finally get to our first major character arc. The original Human Fire, he is having flashbacks to the Holocaust and all the bodies in the concentration camps. And it is a very, very trashy comparison to make in this story. But the thing is, he swore that he would never permit evil like that to exist ever again. And it would be tonally horrendous for me to follow up pages about mass graves of Jewish people by saying how amazing that threesome on the left would be. The original Human Fire views the disposable nature of the SHIELD life model decoys as equivalent to the final solution. And he won't stand for a group being exterminated. And he is going to lead a robot revolution, but a major Marvel villain has secretly been planning this and forcing this, and will exploit the gullible Human Fire's righteousness for his own goals of supremacy. That is that. Comic is done. I don't mind parts of it. I think it's got its ideas, but they are not enough to sustain either 8 or 12 issues. I'll have to give it 7 thumbs up in the end.